What would you call justice when all that remains is the bitter taste of revenge? Imagine being in the midst of chaos, where muffled screams echo like echoes of a past that refuses to die. A body stretched out on the ground, motionless, while he stands still, his hands stained with the blood he swore to clean. His eyes, empty, reflect a story that no one dared to hear, a truth that cuts deeper than any blade. Have you ever been there? Have you ever felt the weight of a choice between right and wrong turn into something too dark to describe? This was no ordinary crime. It was not an impulsive act or a random act. It was a settling of accounts. But settling accounts is different for everyone. For many, it is just a nice name for the pain that never healed. For him, it was the only justice possible, the revenge that overcame years of silence, abandonment, and betrayal. You may think you know where this is going, that the line between victim and perpetrator is clear. But what you are about to discover may surprise you, undoing everything you thought about justice, guilt, and redemption. There, in that moment, frozen in time, the world stopped to observe something that few dare to admit. The monster is not born overnight. He is shaped by every shadow of the past, every silent scream, every broken promise. Do you feel that tension? The chill down your spine that announces that something is about to explode? This moment is not just the beginning of his story. It is the breaking point where the line between justice and revenge frays until it disappears. Stay with me until the end, because what he did after that ... is almost impossible to believe. The truth is hidden in details no one saw, in clues left in the darkness, and in the voice of someone who refuses to keep quiet even in the face of the inevitable. This isn't just about a body on the floor or stained hands. It's a tale of pain, of consuming choices, and of secrets buried under years of lies. Can you imagine what might drive someone to cross that line? To decide that the only way out is to return the pain in equal or even greater doses. This is not just a crime. It is a self-imposed sentence, a desperate response to the silence of the system, to the failures that turned a man into the executioner of his own history. And when the voices of justice fail, when the system turns its back, what remains is the visceral desire for revenge, a dark, brutal justice without rules or mercy. But be careful. Not everything is what it seems at first glance. This story is not about clear heroes or villains, nor about the black and white that society insists on painting. It unfolds in the shadows of morality, where right and wrong become confused and leave dangerous traces. Every gesture, every word, every silence is a piece of this puzzle that you are about to put together. A puzzle that challenges your understanding and puts your certainties in check. What happened at that moment on the ground with that motionless body and that empty gaze is just the beginning. From here on, everything will unfold in a dense web of secrets, traumas, and choices that will forever mark his destiny and those who crossed his path. Prepare yourself to embark on a journey where justice is neither clean nor fair. It is raw. It is painful. It is revenge. Are you ready to discover what lies behind this act? To understand what he would call justice while the world called it revenge? What comes next is not for the weak. It is for those who bear the weight of the shadows and face the abyss that the past has left. And if you think you already know the ending, prepare to be surprised. Because the truth is much more disturbing than any judgment can reach. Stay with me. The story has just begun. The line that separates justice from revenge is thin, almost imperceptible. But it is there that true stories are hidden. Those that no one wants to tell. Those that reveal wounds that time has not healed. And this is exactly the journey that we will take together, one step at a time, uncovering layers, shadows, and secrets that do not appear in the headlines. If you feel this restlessness, this need to go beyond the obvious, to understand what is hidden behind the veil of silence, then I invite you to be a part of this. Subscribing here isn't just a click, it's a choice to continue exploring these Dark stories that stir our minds and awaken our deepest curiosity. It's a silent commitment to stand alongside those who seek the truth amidst the chaos, those who don't accept simplistic versions or ready-made endings. Each new investigation, each revelation, each piece of this dark narrative depends on your support to reach more people who also want to understand what really happened. Here, you are not alone. You are part of a community that faces the discomfort of the unknown and seeks answers where fear insists on silencing us. And believe me, what is to come will change the way you think about justice and revenge forever. So stay until the end, because the next chapter of this story will not only surprise you, it will challenge everything you believe. The truth is ready to come out of the shadows, but it will only be revealed to those who are willing to follow it through to the end. Tensions are rising, secrets are piling up in the past. The past is about to come back with full force. Do you want to find out what he did after that moment? Do you want to understand how far someone can go when the system fails? Then stay with me. The story doesn't end there. It's just beginning. Didn't ask for forgiveness. There was no hesitation. Not even a hint of regret in the tired gaze that crossed the silence of the room. The words came out cold, sharp, like knives tearing an invisible skin. But everyone could feel the pain. It wasn't out of hate, it was out of memory. That sentence hung in the air, heavy, loaded with something that wasn't just a memory. It was a weight that had never been shared, a secret kept in the shadows of the past. What he kept there, between those brief words, was something that no court, no sentence, could ever fully understand. Memory, a simple, almost banal word, but at that moment it carried an entire universe of suffering, abandonment, revenge, and perhaps something that seemed, at first glance, almost too human to be explained. It was not hatred that moved that confession. It was something deeper, a force that went beyond the passing feeling to become a definitive decision, a mentality shaped by wounds that refused to heal. The past, with all its silent violence, had become an eternal sentence, a flame that never went out, even when darkness seemed to swallow everything around it. Can you imagine what lies behind these words? What makes someone turn their life into a stage of pain and revenge, guided by a memory that offers no comfort, only deep scars? It is a journey that goes far beyond simple punishment or justice. It is a tortuous path where the concept of hidden truth gains ground, and the decisions made become the only foundation for a torn existence. Deep down, each act, each gesture, carries a piece of this story that no one ever wanted to hear, a distant echo of a reality that remains buried behind the scenes of what most people prefer to forget. This voice, which seems to whisper from the darkness, carries more than words. It carries invisible scars, unresolved traumas, and a mystery that insists on not being completely unraveled. Like a film that begins to reveal its layers, but without giving away the key to the enigma, this confession is an invitation to go beyond the surface, to look with attentive eyes at what is behind the actions and understand that, in many cases, the line between victim and perpetrator blurs until it disappears. The trauma he carried was not just a shadow of the past. It was a living, breathing entity that shaped the way he acted, thought, and even breathed. It was not simple pain. It was a reflection of what society insists on hiding, the places where official justice failed, where promises became lies, and where hope slowly died, leaving space only for emptiness and the need to respond in kind. And it is at this point that we begin to realize that justice and revenge can be two sides of the same coin, two realities that are confused and mixed together, depending on which side of the story you are willing to hear. There is a hidden truth there, between the lines of those few words, a story that has not yet been revealed, but that insists on making itself present. A silent flashback, a scene that appears in the shadows of his memory, but that does not fully reveal itself. Something that time has not erased, that pain has not allowed us to forget. It is a mystery that challenges us to think about the consequences of decisions, about the impact that experiences shape our mentality, and about the complexity of a person's transformation when all they know is pain and betrayal. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this confession is not just a phrase thrown into the wind. It is the thread that connects the dark past to the implacable present. It is in this thread that lies the key to understanding not only his actions, but what drives so many other stories of distorted justice, of decisions that go beyond reason and turn into something cruel, intense, almost inevitable. It is there, in this place where memory and revenge meet, that the journey truly begins. And that is precisely why these stories matter. Because they reveal what lies hidden in the cracks of the system, in the flaws that allow pain to turn into revenge. They show us that for every extreme act, there's a shadow of deep suffering, a chain of events that culminated in that moment of rupture. And this is the complexity we want to unravel, not to justify, but to understand, to feel, to not let these voices be lost in the silence of indifference. So think with me. How many times have you witnessed something like this? How many stories have you heard half-heartedly forgotten? This voice from the shadows is a reminder that the truth is multifaceted, that characters are not just good or bad, but beings marked by experiences that escape simplistic understanding. It is this journey that we will continue to explore, diving deep into the layers that make this confession a portal to a disturbing and real reality. If you want, leave a word in the comments that sums up this feeling of mystery, pain, and restlessness. For you, that word that arises when the truth is not what it seems, and memory weighs more than any sentence. Your answer will be an important part of this conversation that we are building together, because here, more than listening, we want to feel, reflect, and understand what remains hidden beneath the surface. Now, without losing pace, the story continues. And what comes next will bring even more revelations and questions that challenge our vision of justice, humanity, and revenge. The silence of childhood can be more deafening than any scream. Imagine a boy trapped in a house where the walls hold secrets, where his mother's gaze screams louder than her words, and where his father's presence is a shadow that hurts without having to raise a hand. It is a type of violence that leaves no visible marks, but that corrodes the soul, molds a fragile mentality, full of cracks and invisible scars. That was the day everything broke for him, the breaking point that no one saw coming, the exact moment when the boy began to unravel within himself, leaving room for something darker to grow there. Can you feel the weight of that pain? The feeling of abandonment that comes not from absence, but from an empty presence, from an averted gaze, from affection that never arrived. It is a suffocating void, where childhood should flourish and learn, but instead, it has learned fear, distrust, and the need to hide in order to survive. This initial fracture is like a crack in a wall that over time opens up until it becomes an abyss. And once that abyss forms, there's no going back, only a slow and painful transformation, a change in mindset that defines the course of an entire life. The boy the world ignored was, in fact, a complex map of traumas and unspoken decisions, a sum of small blows that no hug or word could undo. He was a refuge of secrets buried in the silence of the house, in the hard gaze of his mother, in the oppressive silence of his father. The impact of that abandoned childhood was not only in what was done to him, but in what was left undone. Affection denied, the respect denied, the humanity denied. This is where the origin of the monster begins, not as a being born of evil, but as a distorted reflection of accumulated pain, of unrecognized injustice, of the transformation forced by a cruel reality. This silent and invisible trauma shaped decisions that seemed impossible to reverse. The mind of someone who has suffered this type of abandonment closes down, defends itself, and becomes a fortress that protects and imprisons at the same time. The hidden truth is that no one is born wanting to be monstrous. Circumstances, unhealed wounds, and the absence of hope create this monster. It is a journey that begins in a shattered childhood, but extends throughout life, fueling a cycle where justice and revenge are confused into a single feeling, the desperate need to be seen, heard, and recognized. When we look at this story, we begin to understand that real violence is not only in visible acts, but in the invisible cracks in the soul, in the emotional abandonment, in the unspoken words, in the memories that burn more than any physical wound. And this impact goes far beyond the life of that boy, because it reflects a reality present in many other stories that remain buried, far from the spotlight. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding this initial fracture is fundamental to understanding the choices that came later, those that shocked, that surprised, that defied the rules of what we call justice. The transformation that occurs when childhood is marked by this pain has a ripple effect that reverberates in every decision, in every reaction, in every moment where the line between victim and perpetrator becomes blurred. This boy's journey becomes the narrative of many who, invisible to the world, carry the weight of wounds that never had a chance to heal. This is where we begin to understand the inner workings of a complex mind, the defense mechanisms that emerge in response to silent and ongoing violence. What seemed to be just a difficult childhood is, in fact, the trigger for a series of choices that forever mark the destiny of that boy. And it is important to recognize that these wounds are not just his, they reflect a collective failure, a hidden truth about the impact that indifference and abandonment have on a life. When we realize this, we begin to ask ourselves, how can a society call it justice if it fails to protect what should be most sacred? How can a mindset change when the foundation of trust and love is broken so early? These are questions that take us far beyond the obvious, forcing us to confront the uncomfortable realities that lie behind the headlines, the judgments, and the sentences. The answer to these questions lies in understanding that not every wound is visible, nor is every pain understood, and that this first fracture, silent and invisible, was the starting point for a transformation that would change everything for him, for the people around him, and for the story that would unfold next. This transformation is an invitation to look deeper, to feel the real impact of abandonment and pain, and to begin to realize how thin the line is between humanity and monstrosity. If you have ever felt the weight of silence, the anguish of being ignored, or the pain of a broken promise, share in the comments the word that best describes this feeling for you. Let's create together a space where these memories are not forgotten, where pain is acknowledged, and where indignation is transformed into strength to move forward. Stay with me until the end, because what comes next is essential to unravel the complexity of this story, and each detail will reveal something that you are not prepared to forget. She knew too much. She saw more than she should have and disappeared when the silence began to become unbearable. This woman, a figure who crossed his path like a ghost, carried in her eyes the restlessness of someone carrying a secret impossible to keep quiet. That disappearance was not a coincidence. It was a shadow that stretched out to erase a voice that threatened to open a wound that many preferred to keep hidden. She tried to stop me, but she was part of it too. The confession, half whispered, half frightened, reveals a plot that does not fit into simple explanations, a web of secrets and conspiracies in which her role was crucial and at the same time tragic. What did this woman see? What did she try to stop? The answer lies buried between the lines of a story where the lines between allies and enemies blur, where what seems obvious is just a facade for a much darker truth. She was part of it, a piece that fate placed in her path, perhaps to try to stop what was becoming inevitable, or perhaps to ensure that the cycle would continue, even if in a tortuous way. This duality between those who fight to change and those who, despite this, are trapped in the same heavy chain of secrets and lies creates a tension that only increases, a mystery that cannot be solved, and that keeps the flame of curiosity alive. Imagine the strength she had to resist, to try to stop such a corrosive process, knowing that her involvement made her vulnerable, a target, a suspect, and ultimately disappeared. Her absence is a silent echo that cries out for answers, leaving a void where there used to be hope, and a shadow where there used to be light. She did not disappear because she wanted to, but because the pressure of a system that refuses to be overthrown is greater than any individual will. This reveals a lot about the backstage of a plot where power, fear, and manipulation walk side by side, shaping destinies and silences. From here on, a more complex picture begins to emerge, where nothing is what it seems, where each character wears a mask and where true intentions are hidden behind ambiguous attitudes. The woman who disappeared was not just a witness. She became an active part of a dark game, where trying to stop something can be as dangerous as being part of it. The impact of this absence is felt not only by the protagonist, but by an entire network of relationships that shatters in the absence of that voice. The mystery surrounding this character is a window into what is hidden in the story, a truth that is only revealed in fragments, in sighs, in heavy silences. It is a constant reminder that behind drastic decisions, there are people who try to fight against the currents of fate, who try to change the course, even if the price is too high. This tension between wanting to act and the impossibility of escaping the circumstances creates an atmosphere where fragility and strength are confused, where resistance is at once heroic and tragic. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding this presence and absence is fundamental to understanding the complexity of the choices that followed, the alliances and betrayals that marked the trajectory of that man and those around him. History is not only made up of visible acts, but also of silences, absences, and the voids left by those who were silenced. It is in these details that the hidden truth is revealed, showing that the impact of decisions is not only in what was done, but in what was left undone, in what was hidden, and in what was denied. This woman who disappeared is more than just an absent character. She is a symbol of what many do not want to face, a reminder that justice fails when essential voices are silenced, and that, without those voices, the cycle of pain and revenge continues to feed. It is an invitation to look beyond appearances, to seek out the untold stories, to feel the weight of the behind-the-scenes that shape this narrative of transformation and conflict. If anything in this story touched you, if you have ever felt the anguish of seeing someone silenced or disappear without explanation, write in the comments the word that best represents that feeling. Your participation helps to build a space where these pains are shared and acknowledged, giving a voice to those who have been erased and strength to those who fight not to be forgotten. There was no blood where he fell, nothing but an almost ritualistic silence that seemed to echo through the cold walls of the scene. The absence of red, of the explicit violence that everyone expected, left a disturbing emptiness, as if that body there was more than a mere corpse. It was a message, a clue hidden between the lines that no one dared to decipher. The symmetry was perfect, almost frightening, as if someone had spent hours meticulously arranging that scene so that it spoke for itself without needing words. A lit candle flickered in the corner, its fragile flame resisting the heavy air, and next to it, a note written backwards, defying any immediate reading. Justice is a pretty name for the cowardice of the innocent, even if it was inverted. The phrase carried a cruel and disturbing truth, a silent provocation for those who dared to look more closely. That first body was not just a victim. It was a symbol, a revelation hidden among rituals and signs that few had the ability or the courage to understand. Every detail seemed to have been designed to leave a trail of mystery, to provoke questions that would not be easily answered. That scene was a clue left by someone who knew the rules of the game, who knew how to manipulate symbols to create a message that went beyond conventional logic. The ritualization of that moment, brought a layer of complexity that few could have foreseen. It was not just an impulsive act or a common crime. It was a performance, a silent declaration, a manifesto that challenged the system and those who believed in justice as something clean and immaculate. The lit candle was a fragile beacon in the darkness, a sign of resistance or perhaps a farewell, while the inverted note demanded a deeper reading, a attention that few were willing to offer. The symmetry, so precise, indicated control, planning, a mind that left no room for chance. This ritual hidden within the setting was the first step towards understanding a hidden truth that went far beyond the surface. A truth that shook the foundations of what we consider right and wrong, what we call justice, and what it really means. To accept the consequences of a life marked by extreme choices. It was a direct provocation to those who are content with simple explanations and quick conclusions, an invitation to look into the abyss that opens up when certainties begin to crumble. The mentality behind that act was complex and dense. Whoever put together that scene knew exactly the impact it would cause, the confusion it would leave, and the need to go beyond appearances to grasp the real meaning of the gesture. It was a message intended for a select few, an enigma that could only be deciphered by those willing to face the weight behind the scenes, to understand the power games, the betrayals, and the unhealed wounds that fueled that cycle of revenge and pain. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this clue, so meticulously prepared, is the key to unraveling the layers of a story that defies any conventional logic. It is in the symbolism of this scene that we find the reflections of the decisions that shaped not only that moment, but the entire trajectory that followed. This ritualization is the echo of a transformation, of a journey that goes far beyond the body found. It is the expression of a mentality that embraced revenge as a form of justice, a hidden truth that only reveals itself to those who have the courage to look beyond the obvious. This central mystery leads us to question real impact of the decisions made at that moment and how they reverberate in the lives of everyone involved. The complexity of the message, the use of symbolism, and the attention to detail indicate that we are faced with something that cannot be ignored. An invitation to explore the backstage of this plot, where each piece has its role and where the truth is always hidden in the shadows. If this story provokes you, if the weight of this mystery touches a nerve, leave in the comments the word that best represents what you feel when you imagine this scene. The word that carries the memory of pain, of restlessness, of the search for answers in the midst of the unknown. This is the way to be part of this space where pain is acknowledged and hidden truths begin to emerge. This story, full of symbolism and enigmas, is not for those who seek easy answers. It is for those who are willing to walk through the shadows, to question everything that seems obvious, and to delve deep behind the scenes where the truth is hidden in minute details. And it is precisely this journey that we want to take together, with each step revealing new layers, new mysteries that defy common understanding. If you feel this restlessness, this desire to go beyond appearances, to understand the stories that don't make the headlines, signing up here is more than a simple gesture. It's a door that you open to continue receiving content that moves your mind, that challenges your perception, and that puts you side by side with those who seek the truth in the midst of chaos. It is important because each new story, each new revelation, depends on people like you who want to continue this conversation, who want to be part of a community that is not content with superficiality. Your presence here helps to give us the strength to continue unraveling these mysteries, so that these voices are not lost in oblivion, and so that the impact of these stories reaches more and more people who need to hear, feel, and reflect on what is really behind justice and revenge. It's not just about a click or a number. It's about belonging to something bigger, a shared journey where every detail matters, where every revelation makes room for the next chapter that will surprise you even more. The curiosity you feel now is the same one that fuels the next discoveries, the ones that will shake up your certainties and provoke questions that don't have easy answers. Stay tuned, because what's coming next will further challenge everything you think about what's right, wrong, just, and vengeful. This is a conversation that doesn't end here, and it's together that we'll continue to uncover the secrets that the past insists on hiding. This is your chance to be ahead of the curve, to hear these stories before everyone else, to be part of a group that values the depth and impact of each word. Your inscription here is the force that keeps this light burning in the midst of darkness. It is the bridge that connects what has already been revealed to what is yet to come. Do not miss this opportunity to walk with us on this winding and fascinating road, where the hidden truth awaits to be discovered by those who have the courage to face the unknown. The story doesn't stop here. It unfolds, it deepens, and what comes next will move you in a way you've rarely seen before. So stay with me, because the next step in this journey is just ahead, ready to open new doors that only reveal themselves to those who are prepared. He breaks the silence with a question that seems to pierce the soul. Do you want to know if I regret it? The pause that follows is not just a gap between sentences. It is an abyss where the truth hides, a heavy moment that defies all expectations. The silence weighs more than any scream, and then comes the smile crooked, loaded with a disdain that burns more than any accusation. Only for the time I wasted trusting you. This sentence, delivered like a cold blow, turns everything upside down. The authority that judged, that questioned, now finds its own foundation shaken. Who is the monster? Who is the martyr? This moral twist is not just a narrative trick. It is the beating heart of this entire story that challenges our certainties. The line between victim and perpetrator dissolves like smoke, leaving in its place a gray area where decisions, traumas, and wounds shape a being too complex to be reduced to a simple label. The impact of this moment goes beyond what is seen on the surface. It is an invitation to question the very nature of justice, to reflect on the consequences of trusting and being betrayed, of surrendering one's truth to a system that often fails to see the human behind the crime. This transformation, this internal conflict exposed in that interrogation room, reveals a lot about the mentality that has developed over the course of a tortuous journey. He is not a monster born of pure evil, nor an idealized martyr. He is someone who carries on his shoulders the weight of decisions made in a world where the rules are unclear and where the hidden truth is mixed with manipulation and lies. Each word spoken, there's a spark that illuminates the backstage of a story of pain, struggle, and resistance, where deep emotional wounds have shaped a personality that defies easy judgment. The impact of this statement will reverberate far beyond that room. It is a call for us to reflect on what it really means to judge someone, on how unhealed wounds can transform a life, and on how prepared society is to deal with these complexities. It is a paradigm shift, a deconstruction of the traditional concepts of guilt and innocence, justice and revenge. The transformation that occurs in that moment is as powerful as it is disturbing, because it forces us to face the harsh reality that lies behind the sensationalist headlines. Now I want to delve even deeper into this, because this answer isn't just a moral about face, it's a window into the decisions that came before and after that moment, into the depths of a mind that was shaped by experiences as harsh as they were silent. The journey that led to that moment is nuanced, and only by understanding those layers can we begin to grasp the true impact of what was said. The mindset that defies authority here is not an act of empty rebellion, but a direct consequence of a history marked by abandonment, pain, and betrayal. This is the hidden truth that is often hidden from the cameras, from public trials, from official sentences. It is what makes us question what we call justice and who really wins when we judge without understanding deeply. Every decision made in that room, every heavy silence, every sidelong glance, everything is part of a mosaic that reveals much more than a simple crime. It reveals the human complexity that society insists on oversimplifying. If this story touched you in any way, if it awakened that mixture of pain, indignation, or identification, leave in the comments the word that best expresses what you felt when hearing this confession. It is in this space that we build together a place where these emotions can be shared, understood, and valued. Stay with me until the end, because what follows will delve even deeper into these revelations, bringing to light details that will challenge your view of justice, morality, and humanity. A forgotten envelope stuck between pages yellowed by time never reached the hands of those who were supposed to receive it. Inside, a letter full of torn truths, distorted by altered dates and forged signatures that tried to hide something much bigger, a silenced warning before the final bang happened. This letter is not just paper. It is a symbol of what the system fails to protect: the truth. A message that tried to pierce the veil of appearances, but was suffocated before it even reached its destination. The controversy surrounding this letter goes far beyond its content. It reveals a web of manipulation, hidden interests, and institutional failures that missed a crucial opportunity to change the course of events. The impact of this is not only in the letter that never arrived, but in everything that was built on lies and omissions. A hidden truth that, no matter how hard they try, insists on resurfacing, revealing the deep cracks in a system that claims to be fair, but which, in practice, proves to be flawed and vulnerable. It's easy to think that we've got the story figured out so far, that the pieces are in place and the answers are clear. But this letter, with its interrupted message, is a cruel reminder that reality is much more complex, much more enigmatic. If you think you've got it figured out this far, you're about to be fooled, because the truth that seemed solid is beginning to unravel before our eyes, revealing a web of shady decisions, subtle manipulations, and interests that prefer silence to transparency. This failure of the system is not just a bureaucratic failure. It is a reflection of the impact that bad choices, negligence, and even complicity have on people's lives. It is a brutal exposure of the contradictions between what is promised and what actually happens behind the scenes, where justice seems more like a distant concept than a real practice. The letter that never arrived carries the weight of these contradictions, a weight that echoes in the consequences that affect not only those directly involved, but an entire network of intertwined lives. The journey to unravel this letter is also a journey to understand how the system fails to protect what should be sacred: truth and justice. Each altered piece of data, each forged signature is a fragment of this twisted puzzle, a piece that reveals more than it hides, a window into the backstage where controversial decisions were made, and where transparency was sacrificed in the name of interests few know about. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because this lost letter is the key to understanding the extent of what has been manipulated and silenced. It is in this hidden truth that we find the turning point, the moment when the journey ceases to be just a story and becomes a challenge to the structures that sustain the idea of justice. It is an invitation to question not only what we have been told, but also what we have been denied, and to look head-on at the decisions that have shaped a reality full of contradictions and pain. This moment in history is not just a detail. It is the axis around which revelations revolve that can transform everything we believed to be immutable. The flawed system, the hidden lies, the silenced voices, all of this makes up a scenario where the truth is a constant battle, and where each step towards the light requires courage to face what many want to keep in the shadows. If this discovery has moved you, if it has provoked a feeling of indignation, or if it has reminded you of moments when the truth seemed to have been denied, leave a comment with the word that best expresses your reaction. This is the space where we can build a true dialogue, where emotional memory and pain connect, and where we can reflect together on the real impact of these stories. The evidence disappeared. It vanished as if it had never existed, evaporating. into the heavy air of a system that, in its fragility, prefers to protect those who should be judged. Witnesses who were once certain changed their minds, or were persuaded to do so, in a silent dance of interests and fears that silences truths and manipulates stories. The law, which should be the guardian of justice, became a shield for the guilty. Social impotence became evident, and the feeling that the system had failed was no longer a hypothesis. It was a brutal certainty, a bitter reality that corrodes the spirit. Justice failed, so I became it. This statement, loaded with distorted morality, is not just a rant. It is a rupture, a cry that announces the transition from someone who is a victim to someone who decides to take on the role that the system denied. The transformation is not simple, it is not beautiful. It is a metamorphosis that is born of indignation, of revolt against an order that protects the wrongdoers and forgets the innocent. It is the moment when the fine line between justice and revenge becomes blurred, when the decisions made are marked by a visceral urgency, by a desperate desire to do what was denied by the state itself. This journey to take justice into one's own hands reveals a mindset that emerges from the wounds left open by neglect, corruption, and injustice. This is not a hero, nor a villain. This is someone who, faced with social powerlessness, chose to redefine concepts, shape his own morality, and take on a role that no one else wanted to play. The impact of this decision is profound, because it breaks the social contract that maintains order, challenges the foundations of the system, and questions what it really means to be fair. At the heart of this transformation is the hidden truth that many try to hide, that the law, when it fails, leaves a dangerous void that can be filled by acts as extreme as they are desperate. The complexity of this situation generates an internal conflict that goes far beyond the act itself. It is a clash between the need for justice and the limits of morality, between the pain caused by the failure of the system and the desire to give back what was denied. It is a constant tension that fuels a journey full of twists and turns, where each decision has consequences that spread far beyond the present moment. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding this transformation is essential to understanding the behind the scenes of a story, marked by extreme choices and irreversible consequences. The journey that led to the point where official justice was replaced by personal revenge is full of nuances, revelations, and decisions that reveal the hidden side of a mentality forged in the fire of injustice. It is on this unstable terrain that a complex narrative unfolds, where the impact of actions transcends the individual to affect an entire system that often fails to fulfill its role. This distorted morality is not a whim or a simple rebellion. It is the reflection of a profound transformation, of an adaptation imposed by circumstances and accumulated pain. It is an invitation to reflect on what happens when society fails to protect its citizens, when the state turns its back on those who need it most, and how these failures can generate consequences as dark as they are unexpected. If this story has stirred a mixture of indignation, pain, or identification in you, leave a comment with the word that best describes this feeling. It is in this space that we build a collective memory, where we can give voice to those who feel the flaws of the system and the dilemmas of those who sometimes need to become justice itself. There was a line he had sworn never to cross, a sacred boundary that seemed untouchable even in the violent spiral he found himself in. The one that was supposed to stay out of reach, a promise engraved in the silence of his own principles. But even that barrier, built with such care and reinforced by oaths, eventually fell. The breaking of that boundary was not just a decision. It was a point of no return, a downfall that brought with it a wave of dehumanization as profound as it was irreversible. I promised I would never do that, but they promised to protect me. And they lied. These words carry the weight of a brutal betrayal, of a stolen trust that triggered the downfall of a last refuge, of a last vestige of humanity. The promise that held the fine line between what he could still call morality and the abyss into which he had plunged was shattered in the face of cruel reality. The impact of this betrayal was not only emotional, it was the trigger that transformed what was already scarred into something even darker, a downward spiral where dehumanization is not just a side effect, but the fuel that fuels the subsequent decisions. This moment is a definitive turning point in the journey of someone who was already walking through dangerous territories, but who still maintained a glimmer of control, a fragment of boundaries that separated him from absolute chaos. When this last barrier was destroyed, nothing remained but a mindset shaped by pain, abandonment, and disillusionment. The transformation that followed was not only of actions, but of essence, a radical change that deconstructs any simplistic view of guilt, redemption, or justice. What happened to that last victim is a brutal revelation about how far one can be pushed when the promised protection turns out to be an illusion. It is a cruel exposure of the contradictions between what is promised and what is delivered, between what is expected and what reality imposes. This episode is proof that the behind the scenes of this story is much more complex and painful than any trial can capture. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding this point of no return is essential to grasping the true dimension of the transformation that has occurred. It is at this moment that the line between humanity and dehumanization becomes blurred, where the decisions made reflect a mindset shaped not only by personal choices, but by a series of external factors, traumas, manipulations, and abandonments. This journey is a sequence of revelations that expose the hidden layers of a life marked by loss, betrayal, and a desperate search for control amidst chaos. This narrative goes far beyond crime or revenge. It touches on universal themes such as the fragility of trust, the impact of decisions that shape us, and the hidden truth about what happens when promises are broken. It is an invitation to reflect on the complexity of human beings, on how lived experiences can distort morality, and on the psychological cost of crossing boundaries that once seemed insurmountable. If this story touched you, if it awakened a mixture of pain, indignation, or identification, leave in the comments the word that best expresses what you felt when you heard this part of this journey. It is in this space that we build a true connection, where effective memory finds a voice, and where we can, together, understand the profound impact of these decisions. He did not wait for the official sentence. It was not the judge who decreed the end, nor the cold cell that marked the last page of this story. It was he, with steady hands and an implacable mind, who chose the exact moment, the precise form, and the final destination of that tortuous narrative. The decision did not come from a court. It was not born of a legal process. It was born of the very darkness he carried within, of the transformation that made him into something far beyond what the law could comprehend. What you would call justice, called revenge. This phrase echoes like a scream that transcends the prison walls, a declaration of dark authority that defies any established morality. It is an emotional closing that does not seek absolution or redemption, but that imposes a deep reflection on what it really means to do justice when the system fails, when truths are hidden, and when wounds do not heal. It is the final act of a journey marked by pain, choices, and twists that transformed everything into a game of shadows, where the line between hero and villain disappears completely. But even with this dramatic ending, there is something that was left out, a detail that no one saw coming, a hidden piece in this puzzle of violence and silence, a hidden name, a final reckoning that remains in the shadows, waiting for its moment to emerge and change forever what seemed definitive. This hidden truth is the invitation to continue exploring this story, to penetrate even deeper behind the scenes of a mind that defies logic and the consequences that go beyond what the eyes can see. This final chapter is not just the end of a story. It is the opening of a new dimension of revelations, a promise that what has been exposed so far is only the surface of a much more complex and disturbing plot. The impact of these revelations transcends the crime itself, reaching into the essence of human nature, the fragility of institutions, and the limits of morality when confronted with pain and betrayal. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding this conclusion is essential to grasp the true dimension of the transformation that has occurred, to explore the behind-the-scenes details that no one tells us about, and to reflect on the impact of decisions made under pressure, suffering, and a distorted sense of justice. This journey takes us beyond the obvious, revealing the layers of a mind that, even in the face of the end, still holds secrets that can change everything we thought we knew. This reflection on justice and revenge is an invitation to question our own beliefs, to face the hidden truths that society prefers to ignore, and to understand that behind every extreme decision, there's a story marked by pain, abandonment, and an incessant struggle for meaning and control. It is in this terrain of shadows that the complexity of this narrative unfolds, and it is in this complexity that we find the raw and true humanity that we try so hard to hide. If this last word has stirred up a mix of emotions in you, be it pain, indignation, or identification, leave a comment with the word that best expresses what you are feeling right now. It is in this space that we can build an emotional memory together, where the impact of this story finds an echo and where reflection turns into real connection. If you've made it this far, you've already realized that this story is more than just a simple case of crime or revenge. It's a complex web where justice and conspiracy intertwine, where what seemed right crumbles and what seemed hidden begins to emerge. It's exactly this type of content, which shakes up certainties and challenges thought, that keeps this space alive, which seeks to show what few have the courage to face. So if you felt this connection, this desire to understand what's behind the curtain, leave a sentence in the comments that shows that you're with you until the end. It's this sense of belonging, this sense of mission, that we need to continue unraveling these disturbing stories. And if this content touched something inside you, a simple gesture like liking it can help keep this investigation alive, reinforcing that this search for truth and justice is not just mine, it is ours. Each reaction is a response to everything that has been hidden, a way of giving voice to those who have been silenced and showing that we are attentive and connected. There is a video here that complements this subject exactly, bringing even more details and revelations that can change everything you thought you knew. Click and stay with me there, because what comes next is so impactful that there is no point in missing any chapter of this journey. The story does not end here, it is just beginning to reveal its darkest side.